Hello and welcome to A Moment with Vivacious. Please, before you start this video, would you subscribe to the channel if you haven't? Like, share, and turn on your notifications. Thank you very much and welcome to A Moment with Vivacious. So I want to talk just a little bit, I want to go a little bit more into the feelings thing. And behavior. Behavior is out of control.
Right.
Totally out of
Control. Yes.
And I want to talk a little bit about how the pandemic, but before I do that,
Yeah.
I want to talk about, I'm going to go back to, and I like to put myself on the spot, because I'm not putting anybody else on the spot.
Okay. Well, but you are this Vivacious.
I'm old school. I believe in, you get a job, you took this job. You knew the job description, you took it. And this is how we do it. You know, there's a way to do it. There's a way this company decided we're going to do it. So this is how we do it. So we come in and we're doing it the way we've done it.
Been told that you could been hired.
Then people come in and everybody's doing their own thing. I think this is best. Going back to my feelings, my way. This is best. So it's out of control because behavior, like we say, is out of control. Because people, because of titles or whatever it is, longevity, they're like overpowering. So I'm gonna speak back. So not recently, I spoke up and I said this and this and this and this and this, and everything I said was the truth. And everybody, well, a lot of people in the building, they called me back to tell me, you know, I was thinking this.
They were agreeing with you.
But except for the part when I exposed what you did wrong. You need to get that right. But first I'm gonna talk about what I did wrong. Because I go home and I try to make me better every day. I wanna face my wrong. I wanna know my shorts. Because I can't know everything wonderful about me and not know what I need to prepare and say I know myself, but repair to say that I didn't know myself. So it wasn't like, well, can we find something on her? Can we find something on her? Well, you can't find that on me because I already told what I didn't do.
Right.
You know, I already know where I need to be working at it. So they reverse that anger. The anger comes to the person who said it, even though somewhere in your heart, you know that person was right. Mm-hmm. Nobody, you know, like, and it's an overwhelming majority that's angry and mad and don't speak and do the things that fifth graders do, even though we're grown, because they've been they had to face that this is not right, because I want to do it just because it's me. We so into this is because it's me and this is what I want and this is how I think it should go. And I think in some areas I'm like that too.
Well, I think it gets down to trying to figure out what you really believe that should govern your behavior. We should have some ideals, some beliefs. Well, you said, you know, I like to admit what I do wrong. I want to learn from it. So I can hear that's one of your core beliefs, one of your core ideals, is to evaluate yourself and be able to own the things you do right and the things you do wrong. And that is important to you. And I think some people don't hold that value. Or they haven't been even exposed to that value as being important. You know, you ask, I do think a lot of times what has happened to our culture in general, that idea of personal responsibility and taking responsibility for what we do is not talked about and valued as much as it was maybe even 30 years ago. Do you know what I'm saying? To take responsibility for our action, and that shows character, and that shows strength. To own a mistake, to say I'm responsible for this, and and I did it 80%, and this 20% didn't happen. That I don't know that it's more, how do I look, and don't make me look bad, you know. And but I think that goes back to when people are growing up, the teenagers and all, helping them, challenging them with ideals, challenging them with good role models that exemplify those things.
And to me, that is not anybody making you look like anything. This is what you put out. We only giving back, showing you the picture, but you blame people for making you look bad. Nobody made you look bad. And it's not even about whether you look bad or you look good. It's about, let's make it better. Let's make it a great environment that everybody can be in here.
Right.
And we can do what we need to do to survive.
And let's look at what happened. And not, you know, if this report was supposed to be in and it wasn't in, you can't cover it up by saying, well, you know, there was no parking places. How was I supposed to, or whatever.
Right. Or it's none of your business what somebody's doing over here. Why are you over here trying to give him, know your lane. Know your lane. I find that extinct. Know your lane and stay right there.
Gosh, don't get I really find that
and I think that's
a lot of discipline. A lot of disciplines, and I will put my own psychology discipline in that. I think that it's important to have a voice on things like the environment and things of injustice and things that are very important. But as a psychologist, if we don't focus on mental health, who is? The psychologists and psychiatrists in our country need, our main focus should be addressing mental health issues and putting most of our resources into that. Do you see what I'm saying?
Let's talk about that.
And for nurses, it would be what nurses do, and for doctors, it's what doctors do. Now, we can have other, secondary, I don't mean that disciplines can't lend support for some things, but we got to take responsibility for what's been given us, you know, and make that our priority. And until those ducks are in a row, like you said, the nurses, until they've gotten their stuff done, why are they talking about what other people are doing?
Right.
They need to make sure their ducks are in a row, and usually that's enough for us. We usually don't have time for anything else, and let someone who does the cleaning do the cleaning.
Yes. And Doc, I want to talk about mental health. The crisis of our nation, the crisis of our family, the crisis of our neighborhoods. You know, like we're to the point where we don't know if we're coming home from work.
I know if we're going to be safe.
We don't know if our children are going to wake up alive in their beds. Some children are even being, shot and killed in their beds. It's, like,
gosh, you see some of that, a lot of that, don't you?
People that has suffered the consequences of those actions.
They come in, patients, right? You see, that's what I meant. You see
and some
them
of the people even that do the crimes. Like even when I'm in corrections, when I'm in the jail and prisons, I still do mental health. I do mental health and intake a lot when I'm doing corrections, and right now I'm in mental health. I'm in mental health crisis, and it's almost an epidemic like everything else.
Yes.
And then exacerbation in people who do have psychiatric diagnoses.
Right.
I'm sure the pandemic had something to do with some of
that. But it
that.
was this before. I mean, you may know this. I had heard some statistics at one point that half of the people that get arrested, there are more mental health issues than they are. Or it's
a very large number.
A very large percent of the everyday people who get arrested have serious mental health problems. I don't mean just a little anxious or, a little sad or what, but serious mental health problems that are affecting their judgment, affecting their behaviors. And yes, and we need to find a way to triage that and treat that. And so, because they're going to just going to keep cycling in the system if it doesn't. But I know that there was recently a new law that went through this in the past 6 months to help.
Yeah, and now it's 988.
988, yes.
988, where mental health come out. And I always try to people that I have the opportunity to speak with is, don't wait till things are over. When you first see that person is not taking their medicine in a week, and now they're refusing, get mental health. Then, get some help and then, because if you wait till they're violent,
right,
and you call the police is dealing with their violence.
Right, and then they've got to stay safe and keep the people around them safe.
Right, because you can get hurt.
Yeah.
And I'm not making excuses.
And then even people that are violent, that are just in the streets, that are roaming around, that break in, or they don't know where they are driving reckless, or there are just so many things. Yeah, and it is. I think it's hard to do because we can't force people to treatment. We used to we put people who had serious.
So what happened that the numbers are increasing? Like,
I know it. It does seem like it, doesn't it? The percent of people with serious mental illness.
Right, and they're getting younger and younger.
Yes.
With very serious issues.
Very serious issues. Now, I don't know the numbers. All I can speak to is my practice, because I've been in practice for 30 years. And I would say in the last 8 years, I have so many clients, not that have serious mental illness, but have family members. Part of the reason they're there is because either their parent or their children, very often their adult children, are seriously mentally ill and they can't seem to get adequate help for them. Either they refuse, the kids refuse, they come in and out, they're on the streets, and the parents are just beside themselves. They get them to the hospital, they treat them, they're good for a few months, then they refuse to take their medicine, and they're 28 years old, and the parents don't know what to do.
Yeah, I had a young girl tell me, I said, why'd you stop taking your medicine? I just want to be normal. I said, look in the mirror. Look at you. You look like everybody else. You are normal. You have an issue. You have a condition, a medical condition.
Right. If you were
diabetic,
and they said you need insulin, you would take your insulin.
Right.
So if you don't see well, you either wear your glasses or get contacts or get something to fix your eyesight.
Right.
So if you've got a mental imbalance, you just need to take your medicine to keep it back.
Right. And that keeps you functionable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I don't, I just don't know. I mean, like I said, it was so rare up until recently, and then there's so many, have family members that they're truly concerned about, and finding it very difficult to get them help. So, I don't know. We're trying to change some laws, I know, and the 988.
Yeah.
So that maybe when there is an emergency, people come out, and then maybe they can get them to the hospitals. Maybe they can coerce them, convince them to stay in treatment. I mean, instead of going to jail, go to treatment.
Right. And some counties do that. And I'm going to talk about, if you can, I'm not sure if you can, crisis line. In an emergency, how does the crisis line help in an emergency? Are you aware?
I wish I knew more. I did have an incident where I called the crisis line. Actually, this wasn't a client. This was a friend of mine who's very lifelong friend. And I called the crisis line, and they came out, and they did a very good assessment, and they gave her numbers and names of people to see, and then they left. She quit seeing people. She just took those numbers and names and much credit went on her way. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, now, if someone was wanting help, now she wasn't suicidal, and she wasn't going to hurt anybody.
Mm-hmm.
She was just delusional.
Okay.
And not functioning well and in and out of the streets. And so I don't know.
In a point that a family member or a loved one is suicidal or homicidal, want to hurt themselves, would they have helped them?
Yes, and then the police or whoever they can call the police traditionally, or now maybe even 988. And my experience has been rare, but I have a handful of times where I've had clients in my office and I had to call the police, and they were wonderful, and they were very gentle with them, and they said, we're going to need to get in the car and take you to Peachford. My office is very close to Peachford,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to need to have an evaluation at Peachford. And they got in the car and they went to Peachford, but they were going to hurt
And
themselves.
when they're approaching your office, they already know the person is mental health.
Right, because I had called to say this
Yes.
person, and I couldn't convince them to go to the hospital, even though they said they were going to take their lives when they
Yeah.
left. So I had to get them there. But that's rare, because a lot of people don't say it, and they're not going to say, I'm going to kill myself, or I'm so mad at my spouse, I'm going to go home and do a man. Most people, or me and them, but very often it's a dual suicide, suicide, homicides. But people probably won't admit that too often. Yeah. But I don't know. It seems like I do think we should have better emergency services, and hopefully we can get where police are trained. And actually, I recently had a client who had a manic episode, and the police, he was doing something illegal. I don't want to say details, but the police came and they could tell. They took him to Ridgeview
Mm-hmm.
and not jail.
Yes.
Yes. Now, he wasn't hurting anybody or anything, but but they talked to him for a few minutes and realized he was not sane.
Right.
And I thought that's a good step. And we need good mental health hospitals for people to take people to.
Right.
Yeah. But we need to work together to do these things and communicate and make good legislation.
And get in contact with ourselves. That's
Yeah.
in our consciousness. So in closing, Doc,
Okay.
tell us a little bit about ourselves and how we can get better and how we can get to know ourselves, just in closing.
Okay.
And if anybody would like to, how could they get in contact with you?
Oh, okay. Well, the first part, one of the things that I think that people could do to get in contact with themselves and get in touch with what's important to them is to spend some time alone and think about not what somebody wants you to say or what would be pleasing to somebody else, but what you think of things. Some of the tasks that I give my clients sometimes is go to a controversial movie and watch it and come home and see, what do you think about it? Not what you think somebody else thinks, but what do you really think? Get in touch with your perspective. Get in touch with your preferences and honor what you think. Make notes, journal, and then decide the things that are important to you in life and work toward those things, because that's going to give you a good sense of self-esteem and self-worth. And sometimes those aren't the easiest things either. Those sometimes aren't easy, the things that
Right.
work toward. And yes, we all like approval from other people, and we all like to be included, but at what price? because we want to be true to our own self, be true, you know.
Yes.
But you have to know yourself.
Right.
And not get lost in spending hours on social media.
Okay.
Because you can't get in touch with yourself because you say it takes some time.
Social media has kind of taken away a lot of individualism.
Yes, because, and even time of individual, like just reading a book, and what do you think of the book? That's you in the book, okay? But on social media, if you're spending time on that, you're not, you know, in touch. So anyway, that's one part. There are other things too, but
I find that social media, well, I can't say I find it because I didn't do a study. It's just that some people I know that has, because of a mixture of the pandemic and crime, social media is all their social life.
yes.
They don't get out, they don't get outside. And that has affected my grandkids a lot. You know, when they couldn't get out of school.
And everything was like this.
Yes.
And the interactions, and it's so easy, especially with the young people, if they disagree or anything, and then get people here to help.
Yeah, and so many of them lost so much of themselves. So many of them lost. You think we need to stop?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay,
It's just what we got to.
All right. So many people, especially I find this in young kids. They've lost so much of their socialism.
Yeah.
Especially when they were at the age when this is when my real social life is developed.
So important.
Where I'm from, high school is very important. When I die, if I'm 99 years old, my high school will be my obituary.
Yeah. See, that's that time I'm talking about where you get that sense of identity. You begin to develop that sense of, this is important to me. This is who I like. This is who I'm the kind of person that you start developing that.
And I know we were ending with, we're going to hold it in just a little piece so that we could talk about what happened to those young people when, I was graduating from college, but here's my picture. It was,
oh gosh.
And my friend, I was just making friends. I was in junior high. We were preparing to go to high school.
The word that, those kids that got it, I think when the pandemic started was middle of their junior year, then they missed their whole senior year. That was incredibly devastating. And then the seniors that started missing the end of their senior year and went away to college, and everything was remote. All those milestones, all those milestones, all those, that sense of self.
Yeah.
I can tell a quick story of one of my, this was so revealing to me. One of my clients came in, and she was 16. She was actually, I think, during the pandemic, she was a junior, and so she says, "You know what happened to me today?" And I said, "No, what happened?" She said, "Well, besides walking down the hall and no one speaking, because no one speaks anymore, because we all have our masks. We used to high five, and now we don't even bother. I walk into my English class, who's my favorite teacher, who used to be my favorite teacher, and she says to me, 'Phone? Phone? Yeah. Give me your phone? Oh, okay, here it is.' And I went and I sat down. And then I looked up on the thing, and it said, test today. We're having a such and such test today. And she says, see, when we have a test, we have to turn our phones in. But she says, if it wasn't the pandemic and we all weren't wearing masks, Mrs. Rogers, who's my favorite, would say to me, Eleanor, we're going to have a test today. I'm going to need your phone. And she would have typed in, and we would have smiled, and I would have put my phone down. But what I get is phone. She says, that's what my life is like. All those interactions, I guess I was going to say. Do you know what I'm saying? That give life meaning. you know, the teacher smiling and saying, oh, you know, those things that were mean, and saying hi, and high-fiving in the halls. And
is there any way to recover? Is there any way to recover those years? Is there any way to recover the loss of the pandemic?
Young people are resilient. That's the good news. They're resilient. And they're being very social now, now that they have the chance.
Yeah.
And we want to foster their social development and not just go with how they feel, but respect that they need to have a good time in a way that's safe.
Exactly.
The way that's safe, and we need to continue to monitor very carefully our adolescents, even though they come across as very adult. They still need a lot of guidance, and they need supervision
and
protection from their sometimes their own judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Protection from their own judgment, but you know they will try to make up for it when they get the opportunity.
Yes. And this is how do we adjust mentally, looking at and I'm not going to keep asking questions because I always do that. I gotta get better. Looking at what is not the smallpox, the monkeypox, increasing, just almost so familiar to what COVID did, and COVID is not gone. We're seeing more and more patients with COVID. So now we have monkeypox and we have COVID, and we're gonna have to start restraining our activities again, wearing masks again, and you know, we haven't recovered from doing
what we did before.
Yeah, from coming out of finally taking our mask off. So how are we gonna deal with that psychologically? Is there a way to deal with that psychologically?
Oh, it's a tough one. I do think there are better ways to deal with it. I mean, hardship. I do think we can deal with hardship and limitations that come up in crisis. But I think we really need to look at the social and mental health effects of all this too, and make reasonable judgments. Do you know what I'm saying? Nothing is 100% safe. We can't go get on 285 and be safe, but we're not giving up our cars.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we have to look at risk benefits. I would think we should, and also try to maybe make healthier, just changes. So maybe smaller parties instead of no parties.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Keep in mind the importance
Limiting the
numbers, for example, or distancing somewhat. Or I like with COVID, I like that we're opening up kiosks. What I heard is some of the schools going back, when the children go back, instead of, if they're exposed, instead of staying home and isolating, they want them to COVID test, and if they're not, they don't have it, they can come on. And versus staying home, and if they've been exposed. Yeah. See, for a while at some schools, if you were exposed, you need to stay home for 5 days. But what some of people are talking about is going and COVID test them. If they're negative, then they don't have it, and they're not going to spread it. Yeah. So we want to minimize, but it's hard. One of the things I think is hard is we don't, with the COVID, we made assumptions sometimes when we really didn't know, and maybe we should have said that. This is the best guess we've got. Yeah. But yeah, it's not easy. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Don. Thank you for being
thank you so much for doing this, for for being open and having discussions. Yeah. Helping people to think.
Yeah, we have to grow us. Because if we're gonna survive, if our country's gonna grow and survive, it has to come from us. Nobody's gonna do it. Politics is not doing it.
Right.
They're too busy fighting Democrat, Republican. We have to have a major unified effort to come to change, and That's why I want people to think about that consciousness, growing you, facing situations. So if you could just give us a last closing word, and then tell us if anybody would like to contact you. You can't take care of everybody.
No,
in
and
America,
I really, actually, since COVID, I've not been taking, I've only taken returning clients because I've been in practice so long that many of my clients that I worked with 10 or 15 years ago, call me, and I want to be first available to them.
Yes.
But I'm at the Atlanta Network for Individual and Family Therapy, and it's in Dunwoody, Georgia, and I'm on the internet, Donna Alrisi.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And look, as I said over and over and over again, know you, be true to you, and be good to you. Thank you so much for joining Moments with Vivacious.